live down here in the Bear Cave Studios for another episode of the Sports Frenzy Podcast, Sold Out. With me, your host, Freddie Aloso, with my co-host, the Devil's Advocate.
Today in 2017, we lost Bruiser Bedlam. And if you have not checked out that behind the ring story about Bruiser Bedlam, it's quite interesting. He's got an interesting career. His wife's written a couple books about him. Jim Cornette has a lot of comments about him. He's a fascinating man. So if you get a minute, check him out.
All right, now our other co-host, the good Reverend himself, Jason Todd.
Hey, and you guys are not going to believe what happened today. I found this completely on my own, doing some digging around the internet. Did any of you know that on this day, back in 1998, WCW held Super Brawl 8 at the Cow Palace, San Francisco? And that's when Sting beat Hollywood Hulk Hogan to win a vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship. I bet none of you knew any of that.
Horrible match.
Boom, boom, boom.
Of course.
All right, and last but not least,
I feel like we should establish. Wait, before we get to him, I feel like we should establish there were a lot of bad main events from WCW.
There were.
I mean, let's face it, that was one of the more anticipated matches ever.
Yeah, and it did not deliver at all.
It landed like a fart in church. You can respect that analogy, right?
That's a good one.
It's an apt one.
All right. And the encyclopedia himself, Blackbeard.
And gentlemen, we're back to being a wrestling podcast on the Sports Frenzy Podcast Network. Sorry, no romance on this relationship episode or any of that crap. We're men talking about fake wrestling.
Yes.
Hey, don't say that to Austin Theory.
So
Yeah.
we will.
You might catch ass whooping in at a media event. So this is the 22nd when we're recording. We're a day and a half-ish out from Elimination Chamber. We currently have the Elimination Chamber press event going on in the background. So if anything crazy goes on, you guys will hear it from us first here. So where do you guys want to start for this week before we go into the picks later on for everybody?
Well, why don't we go back to something that happened last week on AEW Dynamite, and specifically a promo cut by Darby Allin. I know you guys touched a little bit on AEW last week. There's been a lot of criticism of this promo. A lot of people saying that the promo didn't come across well. It mentioned people that are working for the competition. It didn't really relate to what's happening in the storyline as well as it could have. So if you want to know specifics, you could go out there and Google it, support the dirt sheets, go right ahead if you want to. All that being said, do you guys think that there's validity in that issue? Did Darby Allin's promo miss the mark?
As much as anybody's in that company, like it wasn't the best Darby Allin promo I ever heard. But if you ask me what the best Darby Allin promo I ever heard was, I'd be hard pressed to answer that question. So I don't know. I did think it was a weird one when I heard it, because I don't know what other people's complaints about it were. But for me, I was like, he's trying to be like too behind the scenes and then not behind the scenes, and then kept going back and forth in it. So it didn't feel like it had a real direction. But I mean, whatever. That's how I felt about that promo. Whatever.
For me, it felt forced, like he was trying too hard. Like he didn't know where he was going with it, but then he would try extra hard to make it sound cooler. but then it just wasn't resonating. I don't know. I feel like AEW is dropping the ball a lot as of late, and it's showing in the product as much as it's had as before. Maybe not as before. It was kind of like subtle. Now it's just kind of showing up every week. You're seeing mistakes, miscues, bad promos, just a lack of direction. I know they just signed someone from WWE's ex-creative board that was friends with Sasha Banks, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that'll help, but I don't know. It just AEW seems to be spiraling right now, and hopefully for competition's sake they can figure it out, but we'll see.
Her name is Jennifer Pepperman.
Jennifer Pepperman.
Never heard of her until this week.
Yeah, me neither. I was like, I didn't realize she was that important, but apparently she was. There's something to be said for non-scripted promos. There's something to be said for scripted promos, and there's something to be said for who can do what. And I think one of the issues AEW has is certain people can take the ball and run with it, and certain people need to be handed the ball with a script attached to it. And I think Darby is one of those guys where you love his intensity and you love his ring work and you love him, but you don't necessarily love every promo he's ever delivered. I think he is one of the people that would benefit from a little rehearsal and some bullet points. Whereas if you looked at Sting's promo this week, it was very good. He got right to the point, right? There was a lot of emotion attached. He didn't ramble on too long, but he got his point across. Like, I think he almost fixed some of the damage that Darby did last week. He brought that emotional piece to it that I think it was missing up to this point. But I mean, I think that's true overall, right? There are a lot of guys that can deliver a promo, and then there's you can tell right away there's a lot of guys that can't, especially the younger guys. And I think there's something to be said for someone in the background going, "What are you going to talk about tonight? Why don't you give me the highlights? Tell me what you're going to say." And if it doesn't come out the way you want it, well, all right, we're gonna scrapbook this. We're gonna put some notes on a board, or we're gonna help you put this together because you got a lot of thoughts here, but they're not making a lot of sense. So I think hopefully this Jennifer person can do something like that, because they certainly need it. I mean, there's certainly some spots where you're like, that promo didn't do what it was supposed to do. It didn't land. And the fact that you brought up a point about AEW having some problems, I put something on our shared sheet that I wanted to bring up.
Can I get?
Go ahead. I thought you gave your opinion. Go ahead.
No, I let it into you guys. I was being the generous, considerate person here.
Well, don't do that. This is the wrong show for that.
Apparently.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think my problem with that promo last week, and Sting did try to save it this week, like you said. My promo that promo last week, he did not mention once anything about the beatdown they took the week before. Not once. And that was my big problem. It was like, okay, you're mentioning the competition when, he hinted at Cody, which, all right, fine, whatever. But you got your ass handed to you. The Bucks were walking around with your blood on their suits a week later, and you made no mention of it. It's like, were you not paying attention? You just did a run-in. They're wearing the suits. It was right there for you, staring in the face. So I'm not going to even go back to any of his previous promos. I don't remember them because, as you said, they're not very memorable to begin with. But huge miss. The setup was there, and he totally missed it. Yeah. And that leads into some of the other stuff with AEW that I think we want to go into. So, Rob, do you want to bring us into the next one since you were ready to do that a few minutes ago?
Yeah, I put on. I basically put in, why does AEW use B-level talent on an A show? And what I mean by that is, you had a really decent show last night, right? And then you get to the Deonna Purrazzo match with Madison Rayne, and she shit the bed, basically. She was slow. The match had no flow to it. It was all her fault. She kept missing her spots. And then she took that spot. Did you guys see what happened when she landed on her head?
The move
that
of
was
the
her
night.
fault.
The move
That was
of the
her
night.
fault. She jumped a little too much and over rotated. That was her fault. And look, I love RVD, but RVD is past his prime. And I don't know if RVD should be headlining, should not be in the main event. And the move that killed me the most was he still can do a lot of his moves, but when he went to do the where he leaps up on the top rope, he didn't make it to the top rope. His foot got caught and he didn't make it all the way up. And I was like, damn it, man. No. And like the Hardys. I mean, the Hardy Boys seem like they're running in slow motion these days. And yet they're getting these high profile matches. And I really think you got to rethink that strategy. You're running a high octane show. You've got a lot going on here. And then all of a sudden you bring out the show like grinds to a halt. And you're like, come on, man, what happened? Like we just lost all momentum. So I really want them to, like, you want to put them on Ring of Honor TV, go ahead. Let them work with the young guys. Let them, run them through the paces. But I don't think they should be on your flagship show in your main spots anymore. I don't think it's just not working out. So anybody, Jason, any thoughts on that? Anthony, why don't you comment while Jason gets that?
Yeah. You'll get there, Jay. I think Tony Khan actually, he tweeted out yesterday. It was like he was preparing us for it. And he basically said this is, at least this specific week, has been one of the most hectic for injuries and unexpected availability. So could that possibly be the problem? I don't know. I didn't quite feel like you're getting that much B-level talent. I mean, you're seeing it a little bit on Dynamite, but Dynamite seems to be the exception. I think it's way worse on Collision. Collision, there's just so many jobber matches. It reminds me of like the matches you're getting are like the main events from WWF Superstars and Wrestling Challenge back in the day, where you knew who was going to win right off the bat when those matches started. So Rampage, Collision, I agree with you. Dynamite, they don't do it too often. If they did it last night, that might be the exception. And I think we all know I'm a huge fan of Deonna Purrazzo as a person. And I know what happened last night wasn't her fault, but I just feel like it's falling flat. Like, I just listened to her today from a few weeks ago on AEW Unrestricted, their podcast, and on Talk is Jericho a few days prior to that. And she actually admitted she's never really worked in front of a bigger crowd than what she saw start really in Newark at the time I was recording. I mean, you can't really say that now lately, but which I do have a comment on that as we roll along here. But I think AEW, part of the problem is, and we're seeing it now, I mean, the ratings have gone up TV-wise. The audiences seem to be dwindling, and I think they got this problem. They got a lot of B-level talent making up the majority of that roster. They're running out of A talent. The ones that, especially the ones that draw. We haven't seen Jericho on much lately, right? We've had some people jump over to WWE. I'd argue that they weren't necessarily the biggest draws, but you did have Cody go over. You did have Jade Cargill, who are getting great reactions in WWE from what we're seeing. And Sting's retiring in a week and a half. Like, if Sting wasn't on that Revolution card, I'd be curious to see how many tickets they're selling. They got a major problem, and I actually think you're going to see RVD get a full-time contract from them, because it seems like most of their views and attendance is solved by bringing on some legends to beat the young guys that are supposed to be the future of wrestling. I think RVD is basically Sting's successor.
There's also no consistency. Where's Miro been? Where's Keith Lee? Like, they're on for a couple weeks and then they disappear. Where are all these guys going?
I think Lee's injured again.
Okay, then where's Miro?
So, right.
Like there's guys they can use. They're just not using them, or not using them to their fullest ability. Freddie, any thoughts?
For me, this is what happens when your owner is out being a fanboy at events for other wrestlers who aren't full-time in the company yet or about to be signed, and he's not concentrating on his product. He's too busy out there fanboying, trying to get on camera, schmoozing to the crowd, and not worried about his home of what he's got going on. You guys said it correct. Where are all these guys that you signed originally? Shit. House of Black, freaking what's his name? His name's
Malachi?
Yeah, Malachi Black hasn't had a singles match in over 2 years, almost. It's been.
Speaking of that, I heard a rumor, and I don't believe this personally, but I heard a rumor that he and Buddy Matthews don't want to do the job, and that's why they're doing tag team matches and not doing singles. I personally don't see that, but I read that online somewhere. Do you think that's a possibility? That some of these guys, their egos are so big, they're refusing even to take a loss?
That sounds like a way to get yourself fired so you can go back to WWE.
That sounds like to me, that sounds like dirt sheets trying to get some clickbait.
Yeah.
That sounds very clickbaity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
But yeah, I just feel they're not focusing on what they have, and they're trying to keep bringing in or worrying about what the outside is doing as opposed to focusing on their product and making it better. And it's the proof is in the pudding.
So, Reverend, I know you've been praying on this. What do you think?
I have been. And okay, so I just want to say one thing about Tony Khan, who, yes, is very much a fanboy who happens to own a wrestling company. However, when it comes to people who are running wrestling companies or who have been running wrestling companies over the years, him being a fanboy is not the biggest issue I've ever had with an owner of a company. It's not. It's very low on that ladder, in my opinion. It doesn't help, but it's not as big a problem as we think.
Whatever could you be referring to?
Oh, that's a whole other episode on its own. But I do think there is some credence to the injury issue, and I'm looking at a list of injuries, and it's not so great. I mean, you've had Adam Cole out the whole time. You had MJF off with either he's not in the company or he is dealing with his shoulder and various other injuries. You had Britt Baker out. Is Bandito really one of their A talents? I don't think so, no. But Kenny Omega has been out. Ibushi, who's supposed to be there, has been dealing with injuries. There's a lot of names on this list. This is a really long list I'm scrolling through. And so I can understand how that could mess things up for them. And I understand that, yeah, we're watching a lot of these guys learn how to do this in front of bigger crowds and on TV. And we're watching them learn how to do it in real time, like a Darby Allin. We're watching them learn how to do this stuff in real time. But once again, I always go back to the idea that they had people come into the company who wanted to help this talent grow. And a lot of this same talent had the attitude of, no, we know what we're doing. We don't need you to tell us how to do this stuff. And it's not just that one guy who went back to WWE, but it's endemic. It's part of their culture in AEW. Oh no, we know what we're doing. We don't need any help. And then they get on TV and turns out they don't know what they're doing.
I think Adam Copeland was the latest name that got thrown out as that the young guys are not listening to him either. And he doesn't strike me as he's not a polarizing personality that CM Punk is. So if you're not willing to listen to Adam Copeland, if true, you got bigger problems.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's so.
It all comes from the top.
It does, and it does. And he should. I think we've talked about this a lot. He shouldn't be the one making those types of business decisions, wrestling decisions, for that company. He can run the business side, but he shouldn't be making those TV and wrestling decisions. He needs to have somebody in who's really good at that, or at least better than him, which is kind of below bar.
We're available,
I don't
and
know.
we'll work cheap.
Not that cheap. It's still in
Well,
Florida. But
we'll start
it's-
cheap, and we'll work out once we'll
We'll
tie
work
it to
our-
ratings.
Come
We'll
on,
get it.
remote.
we'll do like most of these former WWE superstars are doing. When you don't hear Jericho talking about how AEW is such a great company as much lately. A lot of these guys are going over there to collect their paycheck. They know this company's a joke.
It's like the soccer players going over to Saudi. It's
Or
exact-
MLS.
Or MLS. They're
MLS,
going to
yeah.
get that big payday and get that paycheck.
Yeah, I feel like the difference is like when those guys come over to MLS, they're competing, they know, with people who aren't as good as them, but they're competing against those folks, right? Maybe they're lifting up their teams, but they're competing against those folks. So they know they're going to be able to exude half the effort and look great. But okay, let's say an Adam Copeland comes over and he's an accomplished wrestler. Maybe he's not the greatest technician ever, but he's an accomplished wrestler who knows what he's doing.
Whatever do you mean? He was in the greatest wrestling match ever.
So I heard. Let me tell you something. He comes in and he has to work with these guys. And it's not that same thing, because if one person looks really good in the ring during a wrestling match, and the other one looks like crap, then they've both failed. So nobody looks good in this. So the idea that people just go over to collect a check, I feel like at times we say that because we don't know what's in their heads about wanting to perform and wanting to perform at any level of that. Like, I get that. I feel like that sometimes, like, oh, they just went over because they know they get paid and don't have to work a lot of dates. But then, wait, these are people who kind of want to do that because that's what they do. Like, so I don't see any of them. It's almost like nobody's winning in this, and I want to see them turn it around because it's good for the wrestling industry, especially with what's going on at TNA. It's important that AEW somehow figures this out and can keep going. We know they can afford to keep going, but to the whole fanboy thing, I'm more worried about him just losing interest because he's a billionaire. And eventually he might just lose interest in it because it's not entertaining anymore. And that's when a lot of those wrestlers are going to end up being out on their ass because they didn't improve well enough to go to a WWE or somewhere else that's high profile.
Did you guys see that that graphic of TNA with when they one of the wrestlers put up, it has all their contracts and when they expire?
I heard about this.
Mhm.
I don't remember who exactly did it, but there was a graphic that came up, and it was all the wrestlers and when their contracts are up, and it was alluded to the fact like they're just waiting for their contracts to expire so they can leave. That's how unhappy they are with what happened over in TNA.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I know Josh Alexander, I think, had an option picked up on his contract, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm really happy to be there." But I read a report that was like, what was he supposed to say? He can't go. He's kind of stuck there for another year, whether he wants to be or not. So I just thought it was interesting that I mean, if Tony Khan doesn't jump on this, I don't know, he's an idiot.
But again, it's not just bringing in talent. It's how
no, I'm not talking about the
cultivating
talent. I'm talking about bringing in Scott D'Amore.
Oh yeah, no, he needs.
He just gave all that money to Jen Pepperman.
There's more money to spend.
Yeah, I think
he's got
he
a
has
little
more
more
money.
Ask Daddy.
You know where else I think he could better spend his money? On the venues he's renting. Is it just me, or does it sound like they're on a soundstage the last 3 or 4 weeks? Like,
they're probably better off being on a soundstage as opposed to in those massive arenas with half the fans.
Yeah.
But it sounds dead at times. Like, you get random cheers, like when they all start cheering, but then it just sounds dead in those arenas. And I think part of it is they're booking these bigger arenas that could probably seat 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 people, and they can barely get 2,000 in there, maybe 3. It doesn't sound good at all.
The temptation when you have a little success is to take the ball and run with it, and sometimes you have to take the ball and walk with it. And I think Tony Khan, I think the whole pandemic kind of threw him off as far as how much appeal they had, because nobody knew, right? No, there weren't any fans, or the fans were being separated, so you really couldn't tell who was hot, who was not. People were looking to get out, so they had an opportunity to go see a show. They went to see a show, and now and then you get like Wembley, right? And Wembley is probably the worst thing that could have happened to them, because now he thinks he can sell out everywhere, and it's not true.
Right.
Certain areas he sells well, certain areas he doesn't. So I think like you said, Anthony, he's got to be smart. To me, it's better to have a 2,000 person arena and have to turn people away,
Yes.
than a 10,000 arena and only have 2,000 in it.
It also
Right.
helped their profit margin. I mean, there's unconfirmed rumors that they lost $30 million last year, which in the grand scheme of things isn't terrible, but
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, most companies lose in the beginning anyway. So,
yeah.
but you want to see a trajectory of going up, right, at some point, and I don't know if we have that.
We're dropping out.
Right, and I think what are we, 4 or 5 years in at this point?
Yeah.
So, the other thing with the venue selection, I heard that they hired somebody new to be in charge of this, and there's a strategy to go to bigger cities because they're getting these small crowds in smaller areas. And it was actually Eric Bischoff, and admittedly, this episode was probably about 3 weeks ago, or to a month. But he was saying, no, if you're not drawing, going to the bigger cities isn't going to solve your problem necessarily, because you got more competition for entertainment there. There's other sports going on right now. There's hockey and basketball, for example. There's concerts. There's, like if you're in New York or Chicago or LA, they got plays and other stuff like that, So that's not really the solution. I actually have a crazy idea where at least when college is in session, book arenas on the college campuses. I think you could get the college crowd going to this stuff. You make the tickets affordable, and you could fill that 2,000-3,000 person arena at a local college. You know what I mean?
Yeah, college towns would love that stuff, man.
You'd be
Right.
smart.
Right. I mean, how many times, if you dormed when you were in college, especially on a weeknight, you're looking for something to do one night. You got done with your homework and you're studying and you just need a break. Oh, I could go watch AEW on Wednesday night and down on the other side of campus for like $30, $40, $50, whatever it is,
It's true. It would make sense, but
Tony, we're for rent, buddy.
yeah, man.
We got some ideas.
Still though, only going to work remote. Not going to Florida.
I'll go for the winter.
All right, so devil's advocate, he'll go to Florida.
Hey, I like it hot, brother.
All right. So going from
Yeah.
business
Speaking of liking it
to
hot,
personal issues,
Yeah.
behind the scenes issues.
Why? What happened?
Well, it's not really truly behind the scenes per se, but yeah. So first off, we mentioned it earlier. So yes, let's just go there and get it over with. The latest in the Vince McMahon allegations, and there's nothing new. I'm actually at a point where I'm starting to wonder if I do need to read the 60-page filing, because even today I came across something that I didn't realize was part of it. But there's been a mixed bag reaction, and a lot of reactions from people that worked for Vince, grew up with Vince over the last week. John Cena didn't come across very well at all. He was talking about how he's his friend, and he's really disheartened by what his friend has been accused of. And, I think part of it was stunned, but I wonder if silence would have been better in this case.
Well, the question is, can you love the man but hate the act?
Yeah, that's basically what he came to. I also find it interesting, and this is going back about a month. And Rob, I know you hate these two, but the Garcia twins, the Bellas, they've been so vocal about every little thing with the women's division, how it was booked for years and what have you. And when the first allegations of Vince came out over a year ago, they were very vocal. They've been very subdued. If something happened, we don't agree with it, blah, blah, blah. But their father-in-law is involved, or their stepfather.
That's why they're quiet.
I think that's why they're quiet. So I think they've set a double standard now.
I think they're just listening to their father's lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, anything they say is only going to hurt him.
Do you yeah, but they never gave a shit about hurting anybody. They were always
they
about.
Probably care about their mom.
So her mom should stay with the guy?
No, I'm saying we have no say in what their mom says about it. And if their mom is like, "Yo, listen, stay quiet for a bit."
Come on, how many times have they listened to their mom?
Hard on? If you were married to somebody who all of a sudden this kind of story came out about, it'd be kind of hard on you as an individual. So, I mean, I feel like you can give family a bit of grace in terms of how they publicly handle situations. You know,
we gave Triple H grace a few weeks ago
because he was in the middle of a press conference and they didn't like how he answered the question. The Garcia twins are not in a press conference being peppered with questions by the media. And again, I'm not one of those people who pile on Triple H, but at the same time, they're just not tweeting about it. Like, it's not like they're in the spotlight and people are asking them. I'm pretty sure then you might hear an answer and it might not be the greatest answer ever, or it might be a really good one. I don't know what they'd say. But if they don't have to, they should stay quiet until they have something important to say.
I don't know. They've been pro-woman everything and what have you. They've spoke up against the way men treat women at times, but now that it's their stepfather, they're going to keep their mouth shut. They look like a bunch of fucking hypocrites. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, I probably just got us kicked off YouTube with my F-bomb. Sorry, Freddie.
Here's the problem, though. I mean, you're Randy Orton, you're Triple H, right? You're John Cena, and all the fame, all the notoriety, all the money you've gotten is because of Vince McMahon. Right? So on one hand, everything you are is because of him. On the other hand, he's done some despicable things. So put yourself in their shoes. It's like your father. Think about it, it's like your father, right? You love your father. Your father takes care of you. Your father fed you and clothed you and gave you money, and then you turn around one day and you find out he did something bad. You've got mixed emotions, I'm sure, right? You don't know what to think. And now people are shoving a microphone in your face and asking you what to think. It's not easy. I don't know what I would say if I was John Cena, if I was the Bellas.
2 words, no comment.
Well, I mean, I think people are expecting, like, especially like the Bellas, I think people are expecting them to comment since they've been so vocal in the past. So I don't think you can just pull a no comment out of your ass and think that's going to work. People they're not going to accept that. I think, I don't know what I would say. I think I would say, I don't, I want all the facts to come out and I want justice to be served.
I think,
and I would leave it, and I would leave it there. And that's all I have to say on the matter. And
see that, folks? He doesn't have a PR team behind him, and he came up with a better answer than any of these other idiots.
But again, that's like third party. That's like Monday morning quarterbacking, saying, "Hey, you could have said this instead." In the moment, we don't know what we would say. We don't know how we would react, Jason, in the moment. We know how we would like to, but we don't know how we would.
I'm going to say this, and then I want Freddie to speak because he's been sitting there very quietly. So I want. I don't want.
I'm just taking it in.
I just want to say one thing. As soon as this came out, John Cena, the Bellas, Triple H, all should have known. I got to say something. I got to be ready. There's going to be a microphone shoved in my face at some point. I better know what I want to say. You don't get caught up. You're not allowed to get caught off guard anymore these days. It's not, especially being John Cena, Triple H, the Bellas. People are going to want to know your opinion. And you can't turn around and go, I don't know what I'd say. You better have, goddamn well better have an answer ready. So go ahead, Freddie. I'm done.
I agree with that. I feel in those high-profile spots, you got to have something ready to go. You can't just shoot from the hip when the camera's getting in your face. You got to have either a statement prepared, you got to have those thoughts ready to go and not hesitate with them. And the Bellas, I get both sides. I understand it. They've been vocal about everything else, and it just makes them seem hypocritical at this point where they're not saying anything. And
I mean, don't they have access to the PR machine? the WWE PR machine, call them up. I need an answer.
They're not under contract.
They're
I
not
would
in the-
still
Who's
call 'em.
asking the Bellas?
I would still call them and ask, what do you want me to say? What should I say?
The Bellas tweeted something out or made a comment about 3 weeks ago.
But who's asking them for a comment now? Like people like the John Cena thing. Yeah, that makes total sense what you guys are saying. The Triple H thing, again, yeah, could have been way better. But people are literally in their face asking questions. To my knowledge, nobody has asked either Bella a single question, and they might have something prepared in that event. I would hope so. But why would they come forward with it?
They did.
Then
They did say something.
The
About
issue
their
I have with
father-in-law?
that-
They did. That was the problem. They did no mention of. They didn't mention any names. It was a very generic statement.
Yeah, the issue I have with that, Jay, if you're going to be so outspoken about everything else that comes out, you can't sit on your hands when this one comes out.
You know, the other thing you forget too,
It's-
Jay, is you can get ahead of this sometimes
Yeah.
by making a statement rather than having your speculation. You can come out and say, like Triple H during that first press conference should have already had a statement prepared. He should have gotten way ahead of that. It should have not been a surprise. He should have not been caught unaware. He should have not been given a bad answer. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. If someone asked me,
understand that his answer was basically a long-winded no comment.
right, but then it either should be short and sweet or it should be direct to the point. Not long-winded makes it sound like you're trying to think of something on the spot. You know what I mean? Like if you ask me about Vince McMahon, that's what I would say. I don't know all these. I hope all the facts come out, and I hope justice is served. And I've never met the man. I didn't work for the man. That would be my comment right now. That would be my comment if something happened to you guys.
And
I
Jay,
love you guys, right? But if
still
something went
think that
wrong
Seth Rollins had the best.
and somebody
answer.
said Jason did something, I would say, you know what? I don't know all the facts, and I hope justice is served.
Check the building fund. It's being hidden in there.
And I would say, and I always knew he was a dirtbag. This just proves it.
It
follow
just
the money.
all correct.
All
by
of
the way,
people are dirt. So.
KO and Logan Paul are being separated from
Oh,
having
yeah.
a brawl at the press conference.
Oh, Randy Orton is the peacemaker. That's rare.
And Triple H. So Jay, just to clarify for you, let's say this. It was at least 3 weeks ago on their social media. It was around January 30th. We are shocked and disheartened with the recent allegations against members of the WWE. It has been a lot to process since we found out this past week, just as you all did. This is something we don't stand for or condone from anyone, no matter who they are. We want all women to feel safe and supported in the workplace and in their everyday lives. And that's all they said.
Okay, what else are they supposed to say?
Really?
That's a pretty generic. Hey,
Generic.
this is terrible,
Generic.
and we don't want people think. I mean, I know we're wanting more, but what's the more you're looking for from them?
threw Vince McMahon's name in the mud the first time the allegations came out. They were okay with doing it then, but now that their father-in-law was specifically named in the lawsuit, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
well,
But
we're just
why
going to be
is
generic.
that a shock?
I'd
I'm
respect
asking, why
them
is
more
that a
if they
shock
said
once their
including our own
family is
flesh and blood.
involved?
If they threw that in there, I would be fine. Okay, this was a PR statement there, and I think they failed. I'm sorry. Considering what they've said and done before, I think they failed.
I just don't get it. I'm not saying they shouldn't say something more meaningful. What I'm saying is, what did you expect from them? Because I don't know what you're going to get if suddenly, hey, that's terrible. What that person did is terrible. Oh, by the way, your pop was with him. Oh. Like, seriously, aside from just slack-jawed for like 20 minutes, I don't know what my response would be.
Then if he was found guilty of these charges and he was involved, then he could go down with the rest of them. Done. They've been, like I said, they've been vocal about other people before that have been close to them. All of a sudden, John Laurinaitis is off the hook. And he was mentioned 18 months ago, too. I'm surprised his mom didn't divorce his ass already.
That could be what's going on, for all we know.
And maybe they'll come out later that they were advised they had to say this because there were legal proceedings with Johnny, or maybe, as you said, maybe Kathy Colas has filed or is planning to file a divorce. I don't know. It just seems very uncharacteristic of them when they've opened their traps about everything else.
So
And
with all
call
these
people.
allegations coming out, or more facts coming out, more people are coming out of the woodwork. One of them being Paul Roma. I know, I laughed too, but
Romeo Roma. Get it right,
But-
humanoid.
and what I found fascinating, I guess, or interesting about his allegations is that he kept referencing someone he was teaming with, and that he hit his head and passed away. So he's talking about someone who is no longer with us, who can't substantiate any of this. And people have been speculating who is this guy he's teaming with. No one can seem to figure out who he's talking about. It's not Jim Powers. Jim Powers is still alive.
I read it was Rick McGraw.
Is it Rick McGraw? That's who they came out with. But he didn't hit his head. I thought he had an accident. I thought he had a heart attack.
I don't know. What I read today was it was Rick McGraw, and he had some sort of accident. I don't know if it was a head injury. I mean, I guess
I'm looking him up now. But I thought Rick McGraw had a heart attack.
you might be right.
So again, I don't know what he's talking about. Death. He died of a heart attack. November 1st, 1985.
Was Roma even in the WWF then?
So, but I mean, now they're starting to bring up Mel Phillips again.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to bring up Pat Patterson again.
Mhm.
Terry Garvin. Like, I mean, none of this is new,
Yeah,
But-
it's been around for a while.
right? I mean, we've all heard the Terry Garvin. We've all heard I mean, Patterson lost his job because of it. They brought him back at some point. I don't know. I mean, I'm just starting to wonder, like, is this the avalanche that they've been waiting for? Like the critics of WWE have been waiting for. That we're going to hear all these other stories, all these other people these other wrestlers, like, is Nails telling the truth? Did Vince McMahon try to molest Nails? I don't think so. But I mean, he alleged that. I mean, nothing's really out of play anymore. And I'm just wondering where we're going to go next. And,
Like, was it like the late 90s or early aughts or something where I can't remember what show Vince was on, but he was being grilled by somebody who just kept
Bob
accusing.
Costas?
No, it wasn't Bob Costas. It was someone else. And I feel like I recently saw this interview pop up again in the last couple of weeks. And he was saying, hey, if something is going on, what are you going to do about it? Because the thought is that you guys are just covering these types of sexual harassment and assaults up. And I'm surprised I haven't seen this interview around more. And if I find it, I will link to it, and we'll definitely need to share the link in the post for this episode. But yeah, so this seems like it's been going on a lot off and on. WWE even kind of, except for NXT, WWE largely got off pretty scot-free when the whole Me Too movement was really gaining its momentum there, and then it had gotten into the wrestling world. You were hearing, there were people in WWE in NXT that were being brought up, but overall the company kind of sidestepped it looking back. So maybe we're going to hear about more of those issues. I feel like they've been sidestepping it for decades, though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to spearhead it with Paul Roma, that's for sure.
Yeah. Paul Roma might not be where it's at to lead the charge on this one.
Yeah.
So looking at this press conference, you got Becky Lynch, Tiffany Stratton, and Bianca Belair. And
So far.
Becky Lynch looks more like a dude than Seth Rollins did when he came out earlier on.
What was it at the WrestleMania kickoff when The Rock, I think, was it The Rock or Roman Reigns said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you wore your wife's shoes tonight."
Yep.
Basically.
Stratton was actually, I got to give them credit. They definitely are trying to strap the rocket ship to her. She actually came out and said the only thing good about Australia is after she wins the Elimination Chamber, is she's leaving it immediately.
Hilarious. That's hilarious.
I'm
So
kind
let's
of
jump
glad to
into
see
it,
her
boys.
her call up has been going like this though. They
Yeah.
put her right in there. Like, good for
Yeah,
them.
they threw it
Good
right
for
in
her.
the mix. But let's jump into it. Elimination
What-
Chamber. Oh, go
One last thing I want to get in here. Velveteen Dream surprise return this past weekend, and a lot of people are very unhappy about it. I actually just listened to his interview last month with Chris Van Vliet, where his story is still the same, where he's saying that he was trying to help an underage person, and he was only 3 or 4 years older than the person at the time, who wanted to get into wrestling. And when the guy didn't like his advice, all of a sudden these stories came out and what have you. He threw EC3 under the bus big time and called him a flat out liar about the acquisitions he's thrown his way. I tell you, if you got a Matt Hardy Edge situation there, I mean, yeah, there's not a woman involved, but EC3 and Velveteen Dream could be money on the indie scene. All that being said, Velveteen Dream, there was never any charges pressed. There was never any charges filed against him. So do you feel he should get a second chance? And that being said, I also feel like this is double standard. Cash Wheeler, there's this gun situation where he supposedly pulled a gun on Florida and there's been nothing. Somebody in Florida, 2 people, nothing there. Nobody seems to care. So I also feel like there could be a double standard. And I'm just wondering what you guys think.
Well, it's a double standard in the case that I believe Phil Dunphy from Modern Family said it right. If it ain't white, it ain't right. Right? Jason, I got the reaction I was looking for on that one. But yeah,
Yes, folks, that was Jason spitting his water out.
No, I made it. I survived.
He kept it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just it could be a race thing. It could be a minors thing. Like as we see, our country isn't too gung ho on gun issues, So it could be that too. Like, he just had a gun, whatever. He got caught up. And Velveteen Dream, that looks more like a Dateline NBC special with Chris Hansen. So the perception can be construed to however you feel or whatever side of the fence you fall on that. So it could be one or the other, or it could be that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the issues people were having is that he was unadvertised. And what I read was people were mad that they didn't get the choice whether they saw him or not.
That's annoying.
Like they wanted to know ahead of time that he was there, and they can decide whether they wanted to support him or not. Because you kind of paid him, you didn't really get your choice. You know what I mean? Like you ended up paying him whether you wanted to or not. And there's a faction of people that said they wouldn't have gone if they knew he was on the show. So you've got that.
True.
And then the other thing is, I think people are upset with him because he's really never, even though he's never been convicted of anything, he's never really also admitted that he did anything wrong. And he may not have done so. Like, I think people are looking for, like, even if he didn't do anything wrong, maybe he should be saying he's not saying the right things. He's not saying, like, things may have looked inappropriate and I got to be more careful. And, I'm a person of notoriety now, and I got to be careful who I'm dealing. Like, he didn't say anything like that at all. There was no mea culpas at all about anything. And I think people want.
Did you listen to the interview? Just ask.
Yeah.
Well, not that interview, before that.
I feel like there was a lot of that during the interview.
So during this last interview, but I mean, this is after he wrestled on the show, right?
He didn't. No.
This was
a month ago.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one thing I didn't know. I didn't know the timing of all that.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't come right out and say he did anything wrong. He said he understood how it looked, but there was no malice. He wasn't trying to groom anyone. He could see why people might have gotten that impression, but he was legitimately trying to help somebody.
Did he address the drug issues and the fight at the gym?
He did. He actually apologized to the employee at the gym that had to deal with it, and he said he was willing to talk to him, take him out to dinner to say thank you for putting up with my shit. He did cover that.
So, in your opinion, now that you've heard this, are you willing to give him another chance?
I am, because I think
and if not, what does he need to do in order to get that chance? How about that? I'll throw that out.
I think actions speak louder than words. Let's see if he does anything that, like, if he goes out and starts talking to a 16-year-old again, then yeah, he didn't learn anything. But the only way to do that is you got to give him time and the opportunity. You know what I mean? There was nothing. If he truly did something wrong and there was evidence of it, he'd be in jail right now. That didn't happen. And even he said in the interview, and he even said in the interview, when WWE let me go, I understand why they let me go. It sucks. I understand. They cited it as budget cuts. They never said it had anything to do with these accusations whatsoever. Now, I don't know if I believe that, because I'm sure some of you probably remember, he was off NXT for several months when those accusations came out. When he came back, the fans just ripped him apart. They weren't giving him an inch.
Yeah.
And I feel like anybody, if they're truly sorry or if they did nothing wrong, give them a second chance. If they, fool me once, fool me twice, whatever that saying is, I think he deserves a second chance. I will say Jay and Jason heard the interview. While he was going through that the story about this 16-year-old boy that he was trying to help with his wrestling career, it did seem like the conversation was a little uncomfortable at times. But he owned up to everything else. And even that, he said, I could see why people got the wrong idea. So he didn't say necessarily it was wrong. He said, I legitimately was trying to help somebody. I could see why I came across wrongly, and this person started making false accusations against me. And where was the proof? Where did it go?
Yeah, it's tricky, and I'm trying to remember, what year was it when all of this, like the allegations, but they were stemming from when? Was it like 2017 or something?
Was it that far back? I'll look it up.
Trying to remember.
What's your point?
Hold on 1 second. I'll tell you what my point is. I think Patrick Clark is all of what,
28
something, 28 years old. So if you're the same person, if everything, we're taking his word for everything. If you're the same person at 28 that you were at 21, something's wrong. So there has to have been some sort of growth. You would assume for the regular person, there's some sort of growth in that long of a span where you're not going to make the same mistakes that you made from 7 years ago or 6 years ago. So to that effect, yes, I would say people should be due, a chance to, if he wants to prove himself back to the wrestling world, then yeah, maybe he should have that chance. I do agree with the idea that, hey, we didn't know he was going to be here. And you just sort of trotted him out, not literally, but, I kind of get why there would be some anger and frustration over it. But yeah, of course. I mean, if he didn't do anything and he maintains he didn't do anything and nobody found he did anything, what are we like? Yeah, sure, he should be allowed to have life, right?
It's true.
I do think something you mentioned, Freddie, is about all of those factors that go into maybe the weight of what would the difference between his and what's his name from FTR,
Cash.
Florida. Shooting a gun might as well be saying hello, in my opinion. Again, it's Florida. But yeah, Patrick Clark was accused of grooming a guy. And not for nothing, that holds a lot, even more weight than if he had been accused of grooming a woman, and even a lot more vitriol than if it were a girl. He was accused of trying to groom a boy, and people take that to heart in the society still even more. So there's a lot of anger, and in a lot of wrestling towns, I mean, in all metropolitan areas where people are kind of not going to look at a stigma, but he got a stigma attached to him. Because it's not just the stigma of pedophilia, it's the stigma of homosexuality. And there's more anger that goes with that. So even more than race would play into that, I think that probably played into it a lot too. So
yeah, it's true.
got your family values, folks, who, unless you proved him innocent, he ain't innocent.
All right, and on a brighter note, we've got Elimination Chamber.
Very bright if you watch it live.
Yes.
Like early in the morning bright.
5 a.m. bright.
If you're in the East Coast.
Mommy is talking to the crowd right now.
By the way, who would have guessed that Hawaii would actually have the best starting time in the U.S. on a pay-per-view?
Hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not watching this at 5 a.m.
Nope.
Yeah,
I'll turn it on when I wake up.
That's what replays are for.
Yep.
Start live when I jump on Peacock. Pause. Jeez. All right, so first match of the evening, undisputed men's tag team title match. The Bruiserweights, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate versus Judgment Day, Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Who wants to start it off?
Judgment Day.
Just put Judgment Day across the board.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
They still have not figured out, or we don't really see a plan of where Damian Priest is going to cash in that Money in the Bank.
What I heard, he can't cash it in because Rollins isn't healthy.
That was a response to an interview question.
Right, yeah, that's what he had mentioned.
But he could still cash in on Roman.
He still could, but
yeah, I'd say there's another
July.
Somewhat champion floating around.
I was going to say, Seth is being saved for WrestleMania. I guess, and now the Punk's out of the picture. I think WrestleMania happens, but anyway.
All right, next match, Women's Elimination Chamber match. Naomi, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Raquel Rodriguez, Becky Lynch, and Tiffany Stratton. Reverend, where do you fall on this one?
I feel like they're pushing that Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley match very hard. And it comes down to who I want to see win it for the matchup and who I think will win it for the matchup they want. And I think they're going to have Becky Lynch win her first Elimination Chamber. I want it to be Bianca Belair because I think that's a better match. But I think they're going to go with Becky Lynch.
Encyclopedia?
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree with Jason. I think Bianca versus Rhea Ripley would be a much better match for WrestleMania. And I really want to choose Bianca for that reason. I'm really not a fan of hers at all. I just don't feel like Becky's that great in the ring. And Becky, she lost the NXT title to Lyra Valkyria. She lost to Nia Jax recently. I don't see why she needs to be in this match. You know what I mean? But the booking has led you to think it's Becky. Now, I would love for them to do something which, coincidentally, AEW would probably be more likely to do and pull a switch and have it Bianca win anyway. That would be more believable. But this is WWE. I'm not sure they do this very often, so I'm going to have to go with Becky as well.
Yeah, I'll throw Becky Lynch in this one. As much as I don't want to see it, I got a feeling they're gonna put her over in this match.
All right, Freddie, let's make it interesting. Who would you book to win it, though? If you were booking it.
If I was booking it, it's too soon for her, but I would put Tiffany Stratton. If you're gonna assume her to the moon, that's
I really like Tiffany Stratton. And it would be interesting seeing the blonde Barbie against the goth-looking
Yes.
Rhea Ripley. But if Rhea gets by Nia Jax, but I feel like that's a match we could build up to over time. It might be too soon for Tiffy time, but
Yeah.
All right,
Maybe
Rob,
next year's WrestleMania. But
maybe.
this
Or
one,
SummerSlam.
yeah, SummerSlam maybe too.
We don't have to do the Tony Khan, "Ooh, here's my new shiny toy, push him to the main event" thing in WWE, right?
Slow build it.
Like Jade Cargill.
Hey, I think they're doing it right.
What did you think
Devil?
about it, Rob?
I think it's going to be Becky Lynch.
Who would you
If
rather
I was
see?
booking, I would book Raquel.
All right, you read my mind because that's my dark horse for that match.
Raquel
Because-
Rodriguez and
yeah.
they have yet to have that on Raw, that a main roster type battle, and I could see that. That's something I'd actually want to see.
And they started to have that. This
yeah,
is before she got hurt. They
Right?
were going in that direction, so that's
Are they
possible.
drinking out of their shoes?
They're
It's
doing
called a
it.
Yes,
shoey.
they are.
It's called a shoey.
A
But yes,
shoey.
I'm trying not to vomit right now.
That doesn't make it right, just because it has a name.
I
It's,
don't
it's
get
a
why
shoe
you
they
want to
were
drink out of your
wearing,
own damn shoe,
jeez.
especially when you've just been wearing it and sweating and all that.
Yeah,
but-
no, thanks. That's what they make glasses for,
normally they do it out of somebody else's shoe.
which is even worse.
I've seen Tam Tuivasa in the UFC do it with the random person as he's walking out of the cage. It's insane, but it's a down under thing.
It's not insane. It's stupid.
They are
Go ahead.
scared of nothing on that island. Nothing.
Okay.
Not
All
even
right.
bacterial infections.
Hey,
Next
look, we're going to be longer than the press conference was. Yay!
All right, next match, Elimination Chamber men's. LA Knight, Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, and U.S. champion Logan Paul. Is it safe to say Drew across the board on this one?
I'm going to say something here. I was really impressed with the people in this match. And then Logan Paul qualified for it. That Logan Paul Miz match, when they announced it, I was like, man, this match looks great on paper. And then there's Logan Paul or The Miz.
Yeah, basically.
Is there any hope that they all team up with Logan Paul and tear him into pieces and throw him to the crowd?
There's always hope.
Is this celebrity deathmatch?
I mean, this is your chance.
I'm
Right.
actually losing faith in them setting up LA Knight versus Logan Paul because it seems like KO and Logan Paul is going to continue.
I mean, if you're gonna set it up, this would be the match that you could start that.
And I agree with you. But if you were going to do that, I don't think you have Kevin Owens and Logan Paul still going at each other because I think the Elimination Chamber, it's not going to end it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. There's
I
no
am stunned at how far Bobby Lashley has fallen.
Yeah, right.
Because, I mean, look at him. He looks like he should be your world champion.
He's got the
And-
look for it, but
Instead,
they
he's
still
fighting for
love him.
scraps.
Crowd still
Yeah,
loves
but you know
him.
what? But they never give him an extended storyline, and they can never decide whether they want him to be a face or a heel. So
Yeah.
that's why they don't really love him. They like to plug him in here and there.
No.
But they
I
don't
mean,
really
the
love him
crowd
because they
loves
don't
him.
do anything with it. Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
not,
the
yeah, I'm
crowd
not
loves him,
saying,
not the
I'm
company.
not,
Yeah,
the company doesn't love him because they
Yeah.
don't know what to do with him.
yeah, I agree.
I'm going to go also with Drew McIntyre.
Reverend?
Oh yeah, it's true. Well, I feel like, and we're saying it because we're kind of resigned to it being Drew McIntyre. I also think Drew McIntyre has been really good, especially over the past few weeks with his promos and
I love the
Just-
shirt, the CM Punk
the
shirt.
shirt, the pettiness online, all
Yeah.
of it. I love this Drew McIntyre.
I love
really
the-
enjoy him.
Judgment. I like Solo interferes in my match, and I put my hand up like I'm surprised, like,
Yep.
but I'm still going to take the win.
Yep. And he had a good promo about that after too. Say, hey, look, if it was up to me, I would have gone after him, but I was focused and he wasn't. And I was like, oh, this is a good Drew McIntyre right now. So good, good for him. Go to WrestleMania.
Encyclopedia.
He lost to Seth Rollins twice already in the last few months. I'm sorry, you don't do this match again at WrestleMania. You just don't. You've already seen it twice on Raw. Why would it change the third time? Because Damian Priest is going to probably cash in? I'm going to go against you guys on this. Honestly, it's not like we're catching our champion. I set you up. There you go.
Not my champion.
I actually think it would be more.
I am everyone's champion.
I think it would be more compelling to. I mean, I don't think they're going to go LA Knight. I wouldn't mind seeing, and it'd be the first time in 9 years at WrestleMania. I think Randy Orton. He's a proven main
Freddie fell
eventer.
asleep during.
Right.
I'm
You see Randy
getting
Orton?
ready.
I
mean, that's who you want to win. Is that who you're picking?
No, I'd want LA Knight to win, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think Orton and Seth Rollins have a built-in history there. You could go back to that. Drew lost to Seth twice. I don't know why we would think then he's going to beat him the third time this quickly. If it was built up over several months, like he's got upper mid-card feuds ready to go that if he got past them, then I could see him getting another shot at Seth Rollins. To me, it seems too soon. I even buy into Damian Priest one-on-one with Seth Rollins saying, I'm going to cash in. Forget this damn Elimination Chamber. You're not having it. I'm cashing in. I could be okay with that because we knew it would be fresh. It's not a match we had just seen on Raw like a few weeks ago.
That's fair. All right. And last but not least.
You chose Drew as well?
Yeah. Afraid you picked Drew?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And last but not least, the main event. Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax. Rhea in her hometown. I'm pretty sure I can confirm this across the board would be Rhea Ripley. For everybody. No way she loses at home. Not a chance.
Now,
if Vince was booking.
Yeah.
Possible.
I brought this up during our chat, and you guys seem to disagree with me, but I'm going to bring it up again. I thought the fact that Nia came in the ring and destroyed all 5 competitors in the Elimination Chamber made them all look bad. And I know Jason and Anthony disagree with me. Freddie, what do you think about that?
It makes them look not good enough.
That's exactly what I said.
I would agree with you on that. I would say it makes them look. I get that Nia's the main challenger, right? Like that's who is next in line to fight Rhea. So she's got to look strong. I get that. But also you can't shit on everybody else behind who's supposed to be the next in line to fight Rhea. So it's either got to be it's either got to be somewhat even or you clear house, but not everybody's destroyed on the ground.
I'm just going to say this. I have no problem with Nia looking strong. I don't know why it has to be at the deficit of the other people. So go ahead, you guys.
So my only thought about that is if she'd walk down the ramp while they were all standing in the ring with microphones, faced them, and then laid them out one by one by one, okay, then that makes them look weak. Or they all tried to rush her and she knocked them all down. And kind of like in one of those Royal Rumble spots or something. Okay, fine, that makes them all look weak. However, for context, this was in the middle of a 6-person brawl. Or 5-person, or 6-person brawl, yeah. So she blindsided them. And I think for her to blindside some people and be that strong about it and know that if you're not ready to face her and you're not focused on her, that she's strong enough to take you out, that doesn't make anybody weak. Because she's supposed to look like she could take out Rhea Ripley. And she did take out Rhea Ripley because she ran down and blindsided her. Like, it's not like it was a straight up fight. That's why, to me, it doesn't make them look weak at all. It just makes them look like they weren't paying attention to Nia Jax, and they paid the price for it. Plus, between now and WrestleMania, if you can't build, I think I said this in the chat, if you can't build up whoever wins that Elimination Chamber match between now and WrestleMania and make them look credible, then you've got bigger problems than Nia Jax making them look weak.
That's fair.
I think our problem is we have Nia Jax family member in a high up position, and now Nia Jax suddenly is rolling over everyone, and we've got Bianca Belair, former champion. We got Becky Lynch, former champion. We got Tiffany Stratton, who's an up and comer. I don't think
blindsided.
It doesn't matter to me. I think there's no way she can run in the ring and take out all those women. It just doesn't seem right. I think it would have been right if she would have got some shots in, then they all teamed up and knocked Nia out of the ring. Because then you're because now look, any one of these women can win the Elimination Chamber. What it made me look like to me is whoever wins is just going to be not fodder for Nia.
But then it looks like Nia just was acting like a bumbling fool.
It's an underdog story.
Match.
Yeah,
it's an underdog story. WWE and AEW, for that matter, goes off the underdog story. She ran through all of them. Well, guess what? Okay, if you win and when I beat Rhea, you got to face me. I've already run through you when there was 6 of you. How are you going to run through me one-on-one? If she doesn't beat Rhea Ripley, well, guess what? I ran through you before you won your Elimination Chamber match. Let's see if you could still get through me now. And if you can't get through me, I'm getting a title shot.
I didn't like it.
Okay. And this is why I didn't even want to waste my time, because you make up your mind and it's not even worth it.
It's
totally
worth it. That's what debate is about. We debate the points. I don't agree with that. Freddie agrees with me. Jason agrees with you. That's what makes the world go round.
We agree to disagree.
Yes.
But with that being said, that is our show for this evening. The Sports Frenzy Pod on Twitter, The Sports Frenzy Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, be a friend, tell a friend about the show. We thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.